Yeah, he was one of the very, very first people to start making inquiries with us about the estate. And for all that period of time that we were under pressure, he seemed to be the main person marshalling it. You know, I can't really recall exactly where we met him, but a number of meetings and endless phone calls.
And what was his tone? Was he also someone who threatened you?
Yeah, he was the fellow who was, as I say, marshalling the pressure. I mean, you'd get a phone call from Rajaratnam and then we'd get a phone call from some minister, which we would take it for granted was something that he had made happen. So he's quite an unpleasant character. We tried to have as little to do with him as possible, but he was very much in the picture. Yeah, I mean, it came to a point where we refused to have anything to do with Sashikala and, you know, proposing a sale to a political party. So shortly thereafter, Udaya came on the scene. And while he claimed he was sorting the problem out for us by buying the property, he told us he was purchasing it for his children. It was very clear right from day one that he in fact was doing all of this for Sashikala. No, this was at a fairly early stage where my father, in Chennai, I think, they met, and it was actually a meeting with Sashikala, but Jayalalithaa came into the meeting and basically politely asked whether everything was okay and everything was fine, and then sort of left the meeting, and it was concluded by Sashikala. And the people who, you know, crawled out of the woodwork afterwards were all essentially Sashikala's people. Rajaratnam was very much one of Sashikala's people. Singotian was clearly one of Sashikala's people. It's difficult to move legally on the price issue because we had signed an agreement, but there was a lot agreed that wasn't part of a signed agreement, if you understand what I mean. Shortly after she purchased the estate from us, she lost the next election and DMK came into the picture. And that was very, very early on. You know, this matter's been going on for 20 years, and that was like in the first 5. So during that time, we were receiving all sorts of assurances that everything would be made good, would be settled as originally promised. They had common friends in Chennai who were also informing us of this matter. And when DMK was in power, at least I got approached a number of times from DMK members who wanted to get some mileage out of this, out of basically, you know, getting at Jayalalithaa. And I had no wish at all to get embroiled in any political infighting, and I certainly didn't want to go asking DMK for any favors at that time. Much, much later, things, you know, after 5 or 6 years, and still this matter wasn't settled. At that time, I seriously thought about contacting and talking to some people in the DMK. But you know, in Tamil Nadu, there's not much difference between DMK and AIDMK. It just depends who's in power. One doesn't go up against Jayalalithaa in Tamil Nadu and come away unscathed. But if you look at the events shortly after that first election, after she purchased the property, which she lost, she then recovered the chief ministership not very long afterwards. And during that time, this court case of Subramanian Swami's had started to surface, and a court case was filed for these 32 companies, including Kodanadu.
Mm-hmm.
So we were assuming that that court case would run its time very quickly, and it would become known that Kodanadu was in some way misappropriated, not just Kodanadu, but many other properties. And once the court case was decided, we could then take it up on a legal issue. But that case kept on dragging. That was a complete devastation for us, because everybody knew that these 32 companies had all been acquired inappropriately. And yet, even with all that common knowledge and clear evidence, she was released. And what was then our position? If the government of India go after Jayalalithaa and they can't get her, if we start trying to do the same thing, what were our chances? So how we proceeded legally was very dependent on how that court case came out. And it was only, last year that a final judgment was given. At that time, when we were making contact, we were told very, very clearly by these intermediary people is, all you can do is ask politely. Anything more than that, and you've got no chance of it going any further. And by this time, Jayalalithaa was again back firmly in control of Tamil Nadu, and we were witnessing that regardless of this ongoing court case, they were still doing what the hell they liked in Tamil Nadu, buying up properties, indulging in all sorts of corruption with, completely no comeback at all.
Okay. Did anyone from Shashikala's family, like her brother, her husband, were they also in touch with you?
Yeah, at one stage, that Sudhakaran was in charge.
Who?
Sudhakaran, I think.
Sudhakaran, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's a brother called Divakaran.
Dinakaran wasn't in touch with us directly, but another close family member was. What I would want is, what I expect is there has to be a settlement in all of this. It's not a settlement that I can make. This is something that is between the court and the government. So I'm expecting that the court or the government, one of the two, will try to resolve this issue of these properties. And at that time, either they're going to auction the properties or they're going to take them over, or something's going to happen. At that particular stage, I want to have a claim to try to get this property back. And if I could get the property back in whichever manner was suitable to the court and the government, I would proceed with that. If I can't get the property back and Shashikala retains it, then most certainly I would want her to make good on her original promises. But I don't really have any way of pressurizing her to do that. No, there was never a sale deed at all. It was done. We had a partnership,
mm-hmm.
and in our partnership, we retired, and Udaya's family members became partners. But that was part of a Benami transaction. The day after we signed the document, Sashikala and her family took possession of the estate. Mr. Odaya never got involved in the estate or in any way at all, other than facilitating this documentation. All my family, this was a horrible situation right from the beginning, and it now is sort of resurfacing in its bad memories, and nobody considers that any good will come of it. That's been the case for the last 20 years. They don't think anything will change. But I am very, very passionate about this property, more so because it was my father's home. He was, brought up in Kotigeri. For him to have acquired a property in his own home was very important to him. And he never, ever wanted to sell the property, although he had discussions with various people at various times. He never, ever wanted to sell the property. And even when it came to transacting eventually with Mr. Odaya, my father didn't sign any documents. He completely refused.